Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear-facing, forward-facing? I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better, and kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor, because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Thursday morning and welcome in to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys with your host, Ryan Hickey. We do appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully everyone's having a great week so far. Everyone is staying inside, practicing social distancing, staying safe, and more importantly, or just as importantly, we should say, staying sane. We do appreciate you tuning in and giving us a few minutes and making us part of your morning, whether you're working from home, going into the office. Actually, we do appreciate everyone giving us a few minutes here. Hopefully, for the next 2 hours, we can make it an exciting, an entertaining, and a knowledgeable 2 hours. So, again, we do hope that we can accomplish that. And obviously, you'll be the judge of that. So we do appreciate you tuning in. We have a great, great show lined up for you. At least I think so. I mean, I always feel like I try to bring the best for you guys. You deserve it, especially more than ever right now with a time with less content and less distractions than ever. Hopefully we can provide at least a 2-hour distraction twice a week, and that is what we try to do here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. So, like I said, we do have some interesting news to start about here because Dr. Fauci, and we'll get to this in just a second, made some news yesterday, and obviously he's making news every day, right? He's the right-hand man to Donald Trump. He's basically the one that people rely on the most now. That is, he is the most trustworthy person in America. He's talking at every news conference. He really is America's doctor. He had some interesting thoughts and comments when asked yesterday about could sports actually return this summer, and we'll kind of break that off into MLB's plan, circle back to their Phoenix plan that we discussed a few weeks ago about having every team in Phoenix, in that city, quarantined essentially, and play isolated essentially, and maybe play the whole season there. So we'll get into that. Unfortunately, so we will have, I'm very excited about this, we will have Brett McMurphy, College Football Insider for Stadium, on the show at 10 o'clock, so just about an hour from now. He is the man, if you're unfamiliar with the name, first of all, he is a must follow if you are a college football fan or college sports fan in general. He is one of the best at his craft. He is one of the best and most knowledgeable people when it comes to college football news and reporting. And he was the one who put out this survey to 112 athletic directors that we discussed whether it was ideas about the college football season starting. Remember, we talked about it a few weeks ago. We ranked the ideas whether it was, having the whole, if the season can't start from August as scheduled, what are some ways that we could still fit the college football season in and make us close to, get as much revenue, I should say, as possible as if the season started. So he discussed with athletic directors. They give a few ideas. We ranked those, whether it was starting the season in October, going through February. Remember, we had the one idea, you start the entire season, basically have spring football starting in January, February, run it through Memorial Day weekend, cut off the non-conference schedule. So there's all different ways and ideas about how college football could be played this academic calendar, not this calendar year, so not in 2020, but in the academic calendar from September of 2020 through May of 2021. How can we fit college football in? So he was the one who kind of broke that story. And he was also the one who discussed that athletic directors want college football playoff expansion. And he broke that down again. We discussed that on, I believe it was Monday, if not last Thursday. I apologize. All the days are blending together. I'm sure you feel the same thing. Anyway, I'm very excited to have him on again at 10 o'clock because he was the man who reported all these stories about college football playoff expansion and different ways that college football could be played this upcoming fall. And that could be a precursor. Let's also not just be naive. If college football is to follow some sort of route where they play spring football or they play, they don't start the season until October, November, the NFL is going to follow a similar plan in one way or another. Let's not pretend that the NFL is exempt to all those coronavirus and pandemic issues and that they will start their season in September as normal. If college football is being pushed back, more than likely the NFL is being pushed back. So this could be a key look at not just to the college football season, but what the NFL season could look like as well, possibly, if we assume it can't start in August and September. But with that said, we will get this in a little bit as well. If college football isn't played, worst case scenario, if the season cannot be played for whatever reason and we go a full year without college football, obviously it's crushing for us as the fans, but even more crushing for universities that rely on that revenue and that money to sponsor other sports programs. We've already had one university, I would say pretty prominent, popular university, cut a sport, unfortunately. So we'll get into that and why it could be an eerie view into the future of college athletics and that's why it's so important that college football is played. But if it is not played and that revenue is not taken in by universities, what could happen? So we'll get to that. NFL uniform reveals we've basically gone halfway through. We have 7 teams that are either changing the uniform completely, tweaking the logo, tweaking the uniform. So we'll discuss some of those reveals and obviously give you the draft needs we have. We will go with the NFC. So the NFC East, Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, and Redskins, along with the Bears. So those 5 teams will discuss who they need and what they should be drafting when the draft is a week from today. Crazy to think, the NFL draft a week from today. So we'll have wall-to-wall coverage again going in, and we will have every draft need by the time the first name is read off next Thursday evening. But like I said, I do want to start the show with Dr. Fauci's comments when he was talking to Snapchat's Peter Hamby yesterday. Because obviously, the biggest question right now, and the only real talking point in the sports world is when will sports resume, right? Will the NBA have their season again? Will the NHL resume their season again? If so, will they skip right to the playoffs? Could they have a truncated regular season? What could it look like if sports resume, and more importantly, when sports resume, right? And baseball is kind of having, their same issue. They want to play as many games as possible. Obviously, their season, they never even got started, so they're delayed. So their question is, how can we get back to playing, and how can we make up as many games as possible? That is why you hear creative thinking, especially from the MLB's perspective, because they have a lot more season to make up than the NBA and the NHL. So you have to get extra creative on how they can try to figure out ways to have players both be safe, which is obviously the most important part, but also get these games in and give, America a distraction, and more importantly, also get that TV revenue money. Let's not kid ourselves. The leagues and these commissioners can say they want to be the league to come back, to give us a distraction, to help America heal, to restart the economy. Let's also let's not be naive here. They want to come back because they realize the TV money is going to be massive, because especially with fans not going in to start, and may honestly, most likely and possibly not going in at all the rest of this calendar year. They need that TV money, and that is the only revenue they're going to get in. So they want to return, and they want to get that TV revenue money as quick as possible. So Dr. Fauci is really the only person qualified to discuss if sports come back, when sports come back, and how, if they do come back, what it would look like, right? You can have coaches talk, you can have commissioners talk, you can have players talk, you can have even some doctors talk, but all of those opinions, for the most part, are irrelevant because they have no background in science and no background in how to contain the coronavirus. And more importantly, as Dr. Fauci has said multiple times, and I'm sure you've heard it nauseum already, the virus makes the timeline, right? Nothing we do for the most part, or I should say nothing leagues want to do, can help speed up the timeline, can help speed up the process of recovering. So he's really the guy that would have the most idea and the most sense about when and if leagues could return and how it happens. And he made some news yesterday. Unfortunately, while it sounded positive on the outlook, right? Because you look at all the headlines, whether you go to ESPN, CBS, even some news headlines. The headline was, Dr. Fauci thinks that sports can return this summer. And you watch the video that Snapchat put out. Again, he talked with Peter Hamby on his Snapchat feed. And the question was asked, could sports resume and what it would look like? And the headline and the quotes you read are, sports can resume. And basically what he said, generally, without being edited, which is important because we'll get to that in a second, that basically if sports mirror some sort of idea of what MLB is doing, where you quarantine the players, you basically have them come in contact with no one else, you test rapidly, you test frequently, sure, it could work. It could work, it'd be practical, it has a chance of actually turning out to be a smart idea. Now, the issue is that wasn't the full answer, and really it was edited to make it sound better than actually what he said. And Fauci, if you read the entire transcript, which I saw on Vanity Fair, which is the only place that at least I've seen so far that has full transcript of the full answer about whether sports and if sports could return this summer. And he said, sure, sports could return this summer, and if they follow this model, essentially, again, what the MLB is doing, which is you put players in one city, you make sure they're extra quarantined, you make sure they're not coming in contact with anyone on the outside, you test them rapidly and frequently, daily, maybe twice daily if possible, make sure that whatever happens, the results of someone is sick or not, and you basically try your best to make sure these players don't get sick and prevent as many outside sources of getting them sick as possible. But he said, that is a big if, essentially. And this is also important. He said, this can happen, but more importantly, games cannot be played without fans. And, having players being put in hotels, then testing them daily, playing the season out. He said, as long as they aren't infecting anyone, this is Dr. Fauci's quote. I mean, that's a really artificial way to do it, but when you think about it, it might be better than nothing, end quote. So he's right. I mean, theoretically, it's a tough ask. And on the surface, it seems practical. All right, just put them in a corner. Don't have them interact with anyone. They go to the stadium. They go to the hotel room. Theoretically, that's what they're doing now, except they're not playing sports. So there's no real difference between their exposure, I should say, when they're playing baseball compared to right now when basically all you're doing is going home and staying home. If that's what we do, except you go to the baseball field and go back, as long as we're testing, it should be fine. And it's interesting because just the day before, so on Tuesday, Sports Illustrated and their great writer Stephanie Apstein put out an article that basically tried to burst the bubble and basically give a realistic approach from medical experts, which is most important, about why sports won't be turning anytime soon. And Stephanie didn't give her opinion, but she spoke with multiple medical experts, and basically they took the MLB's Phoenix plan, which again is essentially what Dr. Fauci was using as his example. Quarantine, put players in a city, quarantine them in hotels, test them all the time, and as long as they're fine, theoretically, baseball should be allowed to play. It's a sport that there's not much physical contact, right? It's not basketball or hockey where you're body to body with someone, right? I mean, obviously, baseball is probably the most socially distant team sport that you can have. So, in theory, it sounds good, but when Apstein and she quotes a few medical experts, they kind of break down this idea and poke holes in it. So for the MLB, for this idea to actually work, right? And this is what the expert she talked to said. And this is why it's going to be so hard, if not impossible, for MLB to pull off a biodome idea, per se. And that is, so the steps that have to be taken were right away. So if this is going to happen, right? Let's say June 1st is the target date. Let's just make a random date. That is the day the league is going to resume. Well, first of all, before you do anything, before you have spring training, before you get practice, before you have the team even together, you have to fly everyone to the city, which in this case is Phoenix, have them be in quarantine for 2 weeks. So wherever they're coming from, New York, California, Washington, Texas, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, every state that these players are coming from, these players in every state, they all fly to Phoenix. First thing you do, you're in the hotel room for 2 weeks quarantined. That's everyone. And that's not even just including players. That's team officials. That is hotel workers, chefs, bus drivers, umpires, media, if the media will be allowed there. Everyone that's going to be around the sport has to be quarantined for 2 weeks right away to ensure they aren't sick, they aren't carriers, and they aren't bringing the virus into this quarantine city. Now, once that happens, obviously abundant testing has to be necessary. That is a prominent factor. You have to have testing that is rapid, so you can get tests within the hour, within a few hours. You have to have tests that are frequent enough where you can have them for every player, every team official, everyone associated with the game that'll be there that day. And maybe even have multiple tests, 2 or 3 per person, just in case. You can test them before the game, test them after the game, to make sure and ensure that no player has any even sort of symptoms of the coronavirus, to make sure that this virus doesn't spread to more players. And then you have to make sure, and basically anyone that comes in or comes out of the biodome, right? And they made a good example of EMT workers, to where, let's say, a baseball player sprains his ankle, right? Normally, that's not a big deal. You go see your trainer, and then you have to go to the hospital, maybe get an x-ray or get it taped up. That's fine. But in this situation, if you leave the biodome, if you leave the quarantine area, to where the quarantine area is basically relegated to the stadium and your hotel room, that's really the only 2 places players can go, right? They can't go to the park. They can't go to the supermarket. You have to ensure that these players aren't exposing themselves to anyone outside of Major League Baseball. So even if they go to the hospital to get an MRI, let's say, right, because we see that often. So many players get MRIs throughout the season regularly. It's not that big of a deal. Well, now it's a huge deal because they have to go to the hospital. Basically, you're breaking that quarantine. You're going out into the outside, the unknown world, let's say. So now you have to, once you go out there, you get an MRI on your shoulder. Let's say the MRI comes back negative, right? You're fine. Okay, you rested for a day or 2 and you should be fine. Well, you have to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks after that, because you exposed yourself. You went out. You broke the biodome. You broke the quarantine. Now you have to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks. So I'm sure teams are going to be reluctant and hesitant and try everything in their power to make sure these players aren't going to outside sources to seek medical attention and medical help. So this is a huge and maybe even impossible task that is going to be asked by Major League Baseball and by any other sport that returns, that has to basically, follow this sort of outline and this sort of plan. Because Dr. Fauci said this, while it's an artificial plan and it's maybe the best thing that, like, the only way that sports could resume, doesn't mean it's realistic, doesn't mean players will buy in. You've had players already discuss and say, like, they are skeptical, because guess what? Players have wives. If those wives are pregnant and they give birth, let's say in June or July, you want to be there for it, right? Well, you can go. They're not saying you can't go, but if you do go, once you return, you have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. So, usually paternity leave or bereavement leave, unfortunately, if someone is sick or passes away, that's usually a few days. Fine. You go to the funeral, you be with your family. That's, again, not a big deal. But now it becomes a larger deal, because you could still do that sort of thing. You could still go see your family. You could still go see a loved one that's sick or, God forbid, passes away. But if you do that, you're quarantined for 2 weeks as soon as you come back. So now it's 2 weeks that your team is without you, especially if you're a big-time player. Obviously, you could see the impact that that's going to have. So it really comes down to this, and it boils down to this. If there is no vaccine, which you hear experts, you hear doctors talk about the earliest is 12 to 18 months, and this was back in March or February. So best case scenario, maybe at the earliest, 2021 in January or February, we'll have a vaccine, unless something breakthrough happens in the next few months or a few weeks. So really, if there's no vaccine, unfortunately, the only way that these leagues can continue is with a vaccine, because guess what? Right now, there's still no answer to it. If someone does get sick, there's the only way to prevent it from spreading, the only way to prevent people getting sick is to shut down the entire league and quarantine for 2 weeks. And you're not going to quarantine one team or half of a team for, let's say, 2 weeks and continue the league with 29 teams or 28 teams. All of a sudden, next thing you get to the end of the year, and some teams have played 80 games, some teams have played 60 games. There's too many variables and too many wild cards here to where if one thing goes wrong, the entire league is shut down. We talked about this when the Phoenix plan came out for MLB. Nothing from when the NBA shut down, when Rudy Gobert tested positive, and I believe it was March 12th, if I'm not mistaken, March 11th, just about a month ago, right? Nothing medically has come from that point on to now to where it is safe to play, or there is a way that you can prevent someone from getting sick or spreading it without quarantining everyone that's come in contact with that person. Right? And even though baseball is a social distance sport, you have the outfielders, you have the infielders, everyone is separate from each other. There's really no bodily contact, let's say, right? For the most part, you still have players touching the ball. You still have a pitcher licking his hands, throwing the ball. The catcher catches it, throws it back. If the ball is put in play, you have the shortstop touching the ball. You have the pitcher touching the ball. You have the catcher touching the ball. You have the first baseman touching the ball. Any ball put in play, you have 3 or 4 players touching the ball. So there's still a way that the coronavirus could spread, even in baseball, even in a sport where you're not sweating on each other, there's not much physical contact. There's still a way the virus can spread. And right now, the best way to prevent spreading is by quarantining yourself, isolating those who are sick. So unfortunately, again, Dr. Fauci kind of outlined this without being too dark or too devastating, trying to put it gently. But, you know, there's really no way that these leagues can resume unless there is a vaccine, unless there is a way that you can treat someone who is sick immediately and all those affected immediately and, again, prevent them from being quarantined for 2 weeks, essentially. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, again, Dr. Fauci talked about there's a chance sports can come back. All has to go right, essentially. That's what he's basically saying. Every break has to go right. The players have to be quarantined. You have to make sure that no matter what, no one breaks outside of this quarantine city. No one, ventures away from their hotel room outside of just going to the ballpark. So think about that. You're asking these players, think about how hard it is for you and me right now to be at home 24/7, essentially, right? Sometimes we go for a walk around the block. We go to the grocery store. There are small ways we can get out and at least get a change of scenery. If nothing else, just get a breath of fresh air. Well, these players can't do that. I understand they'll be outside of the baseball field, so you'll have at least some sort of way to be outside, get some fresh air, and just get a change of scenery. But they can only go from the baseball field to their hotel, and that's it. They are not allowed to go to the grocery store. They can't go for a walk in the park because they can't risk exposure to anyone. Anyone. Even if they keep their social distance, even if they wear a mask and gloves, you still have to make sure that these players are mitigating the risk as much as possible, meaning they'll basically have no lives, no family, and can't do anything outside of playing baseball and staying at their house or hotel for 3 months, 4 months on end until maybe it's possibly safe to have sports go back to their respective home cities and play in front of empty stadiums. But it's going to be a few months before that's even possibly the case. So you're asking for a lot. I know, again, we're kind of repeating ourselves from when we talked about the MLB Phoenix plan, but it's interesting to hear Dr. Fauci kind of finally talk about when and if sports could resume, and he's basically echoing what we've been saying and what a lot of experts have been saying. First of all, there's no way of knowing. There's no answer. There's zero timeline. The virus makes a timeline, and right now, theoretically, a quarantined league could work. It's going to be very tough to implement and execute. And unfortunately, again, until there's a vaccine, until there's some sort of way to treat coronavirus patients without quarantining for 2 weeks and then having to force everyone who's come in contact with that person to quarantine for 2 weeks, I don't see how any leagues resume. It's painful to hear, but it's going to be very tough for sports to resume in the summer. But let's get your thoughts. Maybe you are more, more optimistic than I am, right? I mean, I'm trying to. Part of it is just me guarding myself against disappointment. I don't want to look forward to sports resuming, the NBA resuming, Major League Baseball resuming, and then having to shut down a week, a month into it because the player's sick and there's no other option but to shut down the league. We saw with the NBA and Rudy Gobert, the league shut down just like that. Nothing has changed medically to where leagues can still continue if someone is sick. That's reckless. So unfortunately right now, that's why I'm guarding myself and not trying to get my hopes up for some of these ideas because I don't want to be let down by disappointment even more. Because it's dark enough, it's depressing enough when there's no outlet, there's no escape, and it's just coronavirus 24/7 and we're cooped up in our houses and there's nothing we can really do. So I am desperate for sports to come back. I really am. I just want to come back the right way and not get our hopes up to where they have to stop and start. So I'll get your thoughts. Maybe you're more optimistic than I am. Maybe this plan actually could work. So I'll get your thoughts. Are you buying any of these plans? MLB, NBA, NHL? Really, MLB is the only one that has a idea out there about how they would do it. The NBA has talked about basically having the same sort of idea. You could play in Las Vegas, have a quarantine city in Las Vegas, and maybe have a small, truncated regular season or go right to the playoffs. Either way, their ideas, and NHL is talking about playing in remote cities that aren't affected by much in order to continue their season. So let's get your thoughts again. Maybe you're more optimistic than I am. I hope that's the case. I want optimism. That's what we try to bring to the show. Optimism, positivity, hope. But we want to do it responsibly, not get your hopes up for no reason and give you false hope. So get your comments on Dr. Fauci's comments about possible sports returning this summer. And when we come back, too, we'll discuss, because we'll have Brett McMurphy from Stadium on the top of the hour, an eerie look into our future. The University of Cincinnati showed that on Tuesday, and why, unfortunately, it could be dark for some non-revenue college sports. We'll get into that when the Morning Boys and Ryan Hickey return right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Edward Lehman has been a trusted insurance advisor for over 16 years with insurance solutions for auto, home, commercial, life, and retirement. He's located at 54 Sunnyside Boulevard, Suite H in Plainview. That's just 1,000 feet south of 495. Local agent, local advice. The time to think about insurance is before you need it. So do yourself a favor, and before you pay your next insurance bill, give Ed and his team a call, 516-935-3900, or visit him online at www.allstate.com/EL. Edward H. Lehman Insurance is your trusted insurance advisor.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do. Oh, tell the world I see. With an emoji. To stop the bullies.
Know someone who's being bullied online? Send the witness emoji. It looks like an eye in a speech bubble, and it's in the symbol section near the clocks in your phone. You'll let the world know it isn't cool, and you'll let your friend know you care. Learn more about the witness emoji at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys with your host, Ryan Hickey. We do appreciate you giving us a few minutes on this Thursday morning. Hopefully everyone is having a great start to your morning. Hopefully work is not too bad. You're able to focus. I know at least for me, it's been definitely harder to focus at home for sure than the office. So hopefully at least you got some sort of routine or some schedule down that makes working from home a little bit easier, because unfortunately I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. We just talked about Dr. Fauci discussing if sports will come back. Basically, it's going to take a lot of help and maybe even a minor miracle for sports to come back this summer. And basically said the MLB idea of quarantining and having a season basically in one city where all the players and everyone involved in the game is quarantined, it theoretically could work. And it's better than nothing. I mean, he is a sports fan himself. He said he's a big Nationals fan. He's dying to watch them play again this year. So it's not like he's just, trying to, I guess, pour cold water all over our hopes and dreams as sports fans of watching sports make a return and, get us some sort of back to normalcy. But he's very skeptical, and Sports Illustrated had a great article again on Tuesday by Tiffany Epstein, where she talked to multiple medical experts who basically said the same thing. They poked holes in a lot of ideas so far and why they say, at least, that sports aren't returning anytime soon. If you want to give us your thoughts, we're on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Type that in, and you'll see the live feed right there on the Facebook page. You throw us a like, you'll get a notification every time one of our shows on the network goes live, so you never miss any of the content, either with my show in the morning or Errol Marks has a ton of shows at night as well, Monday through Friday. So you'll always be locked into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network and everything we're doing. Same with on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, WWSRN_radio at WWSRN_radio. Same thing as Facebook. You'll get the live notification every time a show goes live, which it does go on Facebook and Twitter. And obviously you can tweet us at WWSRN_radio or my personal Twitter handle, Ryan_Hickey, and the number 3 for any of your thoughts. And the good news is we're also on Twitch, or the Sports Radio Network on Twitch, and an app is coming soon. Very exciting stuff. That everything, one-stop shop, you can find articles, shows-wise, content-wise that we pump out here on the network will be in one centralized location right on the app for both iOS and Android. We'll let you know when that is live and when you can download it to your phone to make it a one-stop shop. So again, we're having Brett McMurphy from Stadium on in just about a half hour to discuss the poll that he had with many athletic directors from different colleges about what a college football season could look like, and also college football playoff expansion, about how 88% of athletic directors are in favor of expanding the playoffs in some way, moving it bigger than 4. So we'll discuss that because, hint, if you're a big NFL fan, not a big college fan, you're, I don't know, why do I want to listen to that? Guess what? If college football has to push their season back to October, November, maybe even January or February, guess what? Don't think the NFL is starting on time. They're going to be similar. They have to follow similar guidelines. Maybe they can have a little more leeway because they have professionals and, it's a little bit easier when you have a professional league and you're not tied to a college and that university, and whether they have students on campus or not, it's a little easier to conduct a season. But let's not kid ourselves. If college football is pushed back, and right now most of us think it will be in some sort of fashion, the NFL is going to be right behind them. They're going to be pushed back as well. So we'll get to that again. Top of the hour, 10 o'clock Eastern, with Brett McMurphy. But I want to get to this college point before we chat with Brett. I want to ask him about this as well, because obviously we all want sports back, right? That is a distraction that is welcomed. We are all sports fans that listen to the show, and it's just a way we want to see our teams back on the field. And even if nothing else returns right now, at least it gives us some sort of distraction, some sort of hope, something to give us and waste our time with, right? Watch these games, get into, and at least have us forget about what's going on in the rest of the world as an escape. And that's why it's so important for college football to be played in this academic calendar. It's not just for that relief, just for that distraction, but also because the monetary revenue it brings to these universities is not just important for the universities themselves. It's very, very, very important for the rest of the sports that go on in college. Soccer, volleyball, wrestling, baseball, softball, lacrosse. All of these sports, a lot of these sports are funded through football revenue. And it's concerning when you see that if there is no college football at some point, at any point, the amount of revenue these schools are losing will have to make these university presidents, athletic directors, and these universities make some tough decisions. And unfortunately, we saw the first domino drop on Tuesday. The University of Cincinnati announced that they are cutting their men's soccer team. Now, they said 100% of the blame is not on the coronavirus. There's other, decisions, and there's other factors that went into making this decision. But now starting this year, so starting this fall, there'll be no more soccer team at Cincinnati. They had it for 50 years. And Old Dominion earlier this month announced that they have cut wrestling from their program. So obviously two, not juggernauts in football, but Cincinnati's, they've been ranked. They have a pretty decent football program. But they already, unfortunately, are starting to make cuts to other non-revenue and Olympic sports. That now, again, partly because of the coronavirus pandemic that is sweeping the nation and also preventing revenue from coming in, they are already starting to make cuts. So it's why it's extremely important, one way or another, for college football to play during this academic calendar. And this is highlighted, too, because yesterday Mike Pence, vice president, spoke with Power 5 conference commissioners and basically discussed how can we make this happen, what is the way that we can have a season resume safely. And the consensus so far, there was obviously no plan discussed because we don't have all the information out there. But one of the plans and one of the agreements was that there'll be no games at all until kids are back on campus, until students are back on campus. That's major, and that's huge for two reasons. One, obviously it's one less option now for college football to be played. One of the ideas that Brett McMurphy and the athletic directors came up with in his report was that if schools are online, maybe we could still have a way where we could bring the football program to campus, have them quarantined essentially, and still play games and play the season close to normal as possible, despite all of the kids on campus basically being online like they are right now. And so obviously that factor is eliminated. And two, it's important because now all of a sudden you see universities slowly, but they are already starting to move their summer courses online, which means that's one step further to moving fall classes online. So now we are getting closer and closer to a fact that we will not have college football in the fall, I should say. And again, because the money is so important to these universities, if it is not played, unfortunately, many sports, Olympic sports, will see their sport cut, and unfortunately, you will see less teams sponsor less sports. And on top of that, you already had Group of 5 commissioners write a letter to NCAA President Mark Emmert, basically asking for relief. So there is, if you're in a Division I sport, or if you're a Division I, I should say, I apologize. If you're a Division I, there are certain requirements you have to meet in order to keep your Division I status, whether that is attendance, whether that is playing conference games and being competitive. Essentially, there are factors you have to meet in order to keep your Division I status. And so the Group of 5 now wrote, the Group of 5 commissioners, the AAC, the Mountain West, a lot of these smaller conferences that don't have big-time college football and college basketball, wrote a letter asking for relief for some of these restrictions, or some of these guidelines, I should say, so they can avoid cutting sports, avoid eliminating and hurting athletes by still keeping these sports, but really condensing it to where they're still saving money. And Yahoo's Pete Thamel talked to a few of these athletic directors, and they had some interesting ideas, at least, to say about how they could still save money, at the same time keep the sports, which is the most important thing. Obviously, if you're a soccer player or a lacrosse player or a basketball player or a swimmer or a golfer, you want to play the sport at your school. You don't end up the same fate that Cincinnati did, where their men's program was taken out from under them, and a lot of these players were shocked and now figuring out, is my career over? Should I go to another school? It is a mess. And it's only going to get worse if more sports and more athletes now are in that position. But some of the ideas that were talked about how they can save money while also keeping the sports was that for these Olympic sports, you could eliminate conference championships, right? That's one less expense. Obviously, these conference championships, for the most part, are played at a neutral site. So that's travel that is saved. That's, putting these games on, getting insurance, all that money is saved. They can reduce the actual number of games played. There is a minimum number restriction. I believe baseball, it's 27 or 28 games that, you must play at least. Volleyball, I believe it's 19 or 20. But a lot of these schools obviously play a lot more than that. So reduce the number of regular season games, either completely eliminate or lessen non-conference play to save scheduling, to save travel. And another idea, which I think is interesting, was that instead of having conference play, and again, this is only for Olympic smaller sports, not football, not basketball, but to drop conference affiliation for a year or two and play teams regionally. And the example Pete used in his article was So if you look at the upper Northeast, the Massachusetts area, right? You have Boston College, you have UConn, you have Rhode Island, you have Holy Cross, all, clustered together, but they're not in the same conference. So BC obviously is in the ACC. So they play Miami, they play Louisville, they play Notre Dame. Those are far places you have to travel if you're at Boston College for a soccer game or a swim meet or a lacrosse game. They're saying you can drop conference play these regional schools. So you play regional teams that are close to you. So Boston College would play UConn in soccer. They would play UConn in softball, Rhode Island in girls lacrosse, and Holy Cross in wrestling. There are ways that you can, I guess, manipulate the schedule enough to where you're still saving money, you're still saving travel costs, but also you're still allowing these sports to be played, which hopefully the NCAA does permit. And I think especially with the time that we're in, they have really almost no choice if they actually truly care about the student athlete to allow these short-term options to help prevent getting sports cut. So hopefully, you hope and pray that, at least for the most part, Cincinnati and them cutting their men's soccer program is an outlier. And more importantly, that college football can be played at some point or another. Because if that's the thing, if college football is played, whether it's January to May, whether it's October to February or March, whether it's even August to December somehow, if it's just played during the academic calendar, and maybe even it's honestly better for these schools to play in the spring if fans are allowed somehow to be at the games, you could recoup most of the revenue that you were afraid you were going to lose if the season was not played. What does that mean? It means a lot of these sports won't be in jeopardy and that they'll still be continued to play. For example, going to Penn State, I know this myself pretty well. Penn State is a self-sustaining athletic department, meaning the revenue they get mostly from football is able to sponsor all of the other 31 sports. I think they have 32. I'm blanking off the top of my head. I apologize. But football helps to fund the other 31 sports. So soccer, baseball, softball, lacrosse, wrestling, swimming, diving, track. Penn State doesn't go to the state for that. Penn State uses the money and the revenue they get from football alone, those 7 games and that short season, to fund and make sure all these other sports are taken care of. So you hope and pray that college football, and why it's important that it is played at some point in the academic year, it doesn't have to be in the fall, just in the academic calendar from September of 2020 to May of 2021. Play these games somehow, somewhere, and most of these schools will be okay, and a lot of these sports will be saved. Because if not, I'm really afraid of the outlook and what will come about of college athletics if, unfortunately, things go for the worse. College football is not played at all. We have a year where all these sponsorships, all the ticket revenue, everything that is associated with football, money-wise, will not be coming in. And these universities, again, will be left with a massive bill, massive expense report, yet no revenue coming in to help fund that. So love to get your thoughts. I mean, again, I hope it's not an eerie view into the future. I really hope not. That is obviously the worst case scenario. And obviously, I'll say this as well. If college football isn't played at all this year, right? If we go through an entire academic season, or calendar year, I should say, and football is not played, we are probably in a lot worse spot as a country, as a society, than just having the soccer team cut or the wrestling team cut or the softball team cut. That's also part of it, too, is it will take extremely insane and untenable circumstances in order for football especially not to be played, NFL and college. So at least we hope it doesn't get to that point, because guess what? You may not be the biggest football fan. You may think, it doesn't really matter too much, or you may not be the biggest college fan. So, okay, the soccer team gets cut. Doesn't really affect me. Baseball's still going to be played. NBA's still going to be played, and I'm more of a pro sports fan anyway. Fine. But just know, if football's not played, if these sports are cut, more importantly and more likely that we are in a worse spot, again, as a country, as a society, health-wise, than maybe we even are right now. So hopefully, again, that's not the case. That is worst-case scenario. But again, I'd love to get your thoughts. When we come back, we'll discuss NFL uniform reveals. Go a little bit lighter note here for sure. Half the teams, half the NFL has revealed new uniforms. Most of them have struck out. We'll discuss the one that actually nailed it and what to preview for the other ones to come as well. It is the Morning Boys, Ryan Hickey, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Edward Lehman has been a trusted insurance advisor for over 16 years with insurance solutions for auto, home, commercial, life, and retirement. He's located at 54 Sunnyside Boulevard, Suite H in Plainview. That's just 1,000 feet south of 495. Local agent, local advice. The time to think about insurance is before you need it. So do yourself a favor, and before you pay your next insurance bill, give Ed and his team a call, 516-935-3900, or visit them online at www.allstate.com/EL. Edward H. Lehman Insurance is your trusted insurance advisor.
Be fearless at MMA Long Island and Setuha Karate. Located at 28 Colt Court in Ronkonkoma, MMA Long Island is the martial arts school for you if you want to learn combat-proven techniques, build confidence, discipline, and self-esteem while learning real martial arts to fight back against bullies, predators, and peer pressure. MMA Long Island offers group and private lessons for all ages and levels in traditional Goju-Ryu Karate, MMA, and self-defense. MMA Long Island is one of Long Island's most affordable martial arts schools. There are no promotion, belt, or membership fees, and family discounts are available. All classes are taught by 7th degree black belt Sensei John Benedict with over 30 years teaching experience. So whether you want to get in the ring or protect yourself and your family, MMA Long Island can help you reach your goals. Visit MMALongIsland.com. That's MMALongIsland.com, or call or text 516-381-9660. That's 516-381-9660.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm going to keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave. But unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys with your host, Ryan Hickey. I do appreciate you having, and hopefully you're having a great Thursday morning. Beautiful here, at least in the Northeast. So at least the weather, for the most part, has been great, which I guess it kind of makes it harder to be quarantined, right? I know on a nice day, it's always harder when you can't really do anything. You see the sun shining, and maybe if you have a backyard, you can sit outside. But other than that, there's not much you can do to enjoy it. So that's why that social distancing, it's going to be important now. Because if we do it now, hopefully by the time summer comes, June, July, August, we can at least be outside enjoying some semblance and some idea and variation of a summer rather than what we have now. So again, we do appreciate you tuning in. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have Brett McMurphy in 9 minutes. Unfortunately, I just got an email from him saying that he has a mandatory call with his company at 10 o'clock Eastern, of course. So he will unfortunately have to reschedule. So hopefully we can get him on maybe next week, because a lot of these questions are still, unfortunately, without sports coming back anytime soon, a lot of these questions are pretty timeless per se. But hopefully again, we can get them either next Monday or next Thursday, because I'm very interested in a lot of these ideas, a lot of these plans for college football. I'm very curious about how coaches are approaching, and more importantly, him talking to 112 athletic directors that are Division I athletic directors. They obviously have the inside scoop and the inside knowledge of, could a season actually resume? And if so, what are some creative ideas that we can make the season resume to where we're still getting a lot of our money and we can make it feel as normal as possible, even if it's, played not on the normal time frame that we're used to, right? Even if it starts, let's say, in October or November, or even if it starts in January and February, how can we make it seem and be as normal as possible? So hopefully we can reschedule with Brett again, either maybe next week, next Monday or Thursday, to get his thoughts again on all of that information as well, because it's a good precursor and a good kind of look ahead to say, well, if college football is in trouble, probably the NFL is in trouble. And speaking of the NFL, this is we'll go on a little lighter note, because now, at least with the NFL draft, the only other thing we have to talk about for the most part is a lot of these new teams unveiling their new uniforms. And Nike was the one who took over the uniform process a few years ago, changed a few uniforms, and now at least a lot of teams are starting to change them again. Most of it, to be honest, is a money grab. Most of it is necessary, I think, for the Buccaneers. They definitely needed some new uniforms. The Browns needed some new uniforms. So, a total of 7 teams will have new uniforms in some variation, whether it's a new logo, new color scheme, new helmet, or, and again, in the case of the Browns and the Buccaneers and the Falcons, totally redone new uniforms. And for the most part, I feel like a lot of these uniforms have swung and missed. And Nike, they do a lot of great uniform designs. They do just a lot of great designs in general, right? All their apparel, I think it's pretty stylish. It works for the most part, but it's weird once they get to NFL uniforms. A lot of them they either get too cute, they look weird, they swing and miss a lot, and sometimes they overcomplicate when the classic look is the best. When sometimes it's an oldie but a goodie. And at least with the Browns, this is, I think, the one uniform so far that actually hit the nail on the head, actually crushed it. And that's more important, as they got back to their roots. They went with the classic look. Yesterday they revealed the uniforms. So that is the brown jersey, white pants, all white on the road, some great socks. They went back to a classic look that looked good, that fans liked, that and coaches, that fans, national media, national fans liked. If you're just a NFL fan, those uniforms in the old days and the retro days of the Browns were a good look. Why they changed it to go with the Cleveland across the chest and kind of look, not great uniforms when they went with Nike. They finally went back, did the right thing, went back to their roots. And while I was hoping they went a totally classic with the white face mask, they kept their helmets the same with the black face mask. They went white. We went totally retro. I think it would have absolutely by far killed it. But without that, they still went classic. They still went back to their old look of the 70s, the 80s. The Browns, how we know them and how they see them back in the day, is how they went. So they are, to me, the only ones that actually did it right. And I feel like, too, when you look back, a lot of these teams, or like when there's a uniform, I should say, change, hinted at, all right, a lot of these things are hyped up and you have a release date for the release date. The Browns a few weeks ago put out a release date. All right, we're going to have a hype video for us releasing these uniforms on April 15th. So it is, fans do get into it. I get into it. I'm a uniform guy. That's why I like college football so much. I love the uniform variation. I love the alternate jerseys. I'm a big, big alternate jersey fan. I think, especially when you go back to the classics, they are great. NBA's done a good job of that. You have the Grizzlies going back to their Vancouver days. I think it's great when teams go back and either make it their alternate or wear it often, retro throwback jerseys, because those are honestly some of the best looks and where the best creativity came from. Now teams get too cute, or you have these designers get too cute. But again, Browns went back to their classics, went back to their retro look. To me, those are the ones who crushed it that I like so far. The Colts are one of those teams that made minor tweaks, and they tried to also go back to their roots of the Baltimore Colts of the 1950s, the 1960s. And basically all they did was they changed the number outline, so it looks a little bit different. They had these, now if you're uniform junkie or you watch a lot of the Colts games, when they do their color rush jerseys, they kind of have these bubbly numbers, I guess you can call it. I don't really know how to describe what the number looks like, but they went back to those full time, which was what the Baltimore Colts wore in the 50s and 60s. I'm not the biggest fan. I don't really like the way the bubble looks. The numbers are almost too big, to be honest. I know Oregon caught a lot of flack this past year because their new uniform design involved numbers that basically took up the entire jersey that you can see from space. If you were watching down, you look, there's Oregon. You can't miss those numbers because they're so big. Kind of what the Colts look like. I'm not the biggest fan of it. They did also reveal a secondary logo, which is a C, but within the C, it's cut out in the shape of Indiana, which I think it actually looks pretty cool. And the only other thing essentially was they added black as a tertiary color. And with that, all they did was change the Nike swoosh color on their away jerseys from from blue to black, which this is my one gripe with all sports. I see it as a Mets fan as well. A lot of fans are clamoring for them to go back to the black alternate jerseys that they had in the 2000s. I don't understand why so many teams and so many fans want to add black as a color when it doesn't go with the color scheme and it's not a primary color for that team. For example, the Steelers, black and yellow. Black is an integral part. It is very important, and that is a good look for them. For the Colts, blue and white is their colors. They don't need a third color. Not to mention, black doesn't go with blue or white. It doesn't. It just looks weird when you have a blue and white jersey and you have some black outlining or a black swoosh Nike color on it. I don't understand why people just assume black goes with everything. That's not the case. Whether it's getting dressed up, you put on black shoes with a blue suit, or if you're in the case of sports teams where you put black in, you put black trim on uniforms, it doesn't go. So it drives you crazy when teams try to incorporate the color black in a color scheme that doesn't fit with them. Red and black with the Falcons, we'll get to them in a second, looks good. Black and yellow with the Steelers looks good. The Colts don't need to put black on any part of their uniform because it doesn't go. It looks weird. It looks out of place. I don't get the need, and the Colts aren't the only ones. Again, there are plenty of teams, and you have Mets fans, again, wanting badly for the black alternates to come back. The Mets colors are blue and orange. Black doesn't go with blue or orange, especially that combo. Stop. Please, I beg sports teams and everyone alike, stop putting black in as a secondary or third color, then it doesn't go. Speaking of black, we'll get to the Falcons here. To me, I thought they, maybe had the biggest swing and miss of all these new uniform reveals. They, outside of a classic retro throwback, shocker. They went with some different uniforms, so they went with all black. They have a gradient where the red is on top and it fades into black pants, which, I'll be honest, it looked very XFL-ish. I saw those uniforms. They did not blow me away. They tried to get too cute, I think. And again, when you have a gradient uniform, you have ATL and pretty block lettering on top of the jersey, similar to what the Browns had with Cleveland on top. Normally, I do like when teams have names on the cross of the jerseys. Like, to me, Texas, that is iconic, and part of the reason why the Texas uniform is so great is because they have the word Texas across their chest. I'm just a sucker for when teams put their names or cities across their chest in football. For whatever reason, I just think for the most part, it's a good look. Atlanta, and especially ATL, to me is not a good look. It is not the case where putting your city initials or your city name or your team name across your chest, it's not a good look. Again, it looked very XFL-ish. At least the helmets, they kind of look cool. They had like a matte black silver face mask finish, so that was That was nice, but again, the only one that stuck was their alternate throwback retros jerseys from really the 90s, the Michael Vick days. You know, you had a jet black jersey, white pants, some nice socks. That is a classic, good look. If they went to that full time, I think fans would have been overjoyed. Instead, now it's like the fourth alternate because they have an all red gradient combo, they have an all black, they have an all white, they have like 4 different uniform combinations, which you know that the only one that actually looks good is probably going to be the one that is worn the least amount of times. Speaking of just terrible, terrible alternate jerseys, the Buccaneers are a weird case because, in a way, they went back to their roots and they did going back to and kind of mirroring their uniforms after their early 2000s look when they actually won their Super Bowl. So, you know, you had the red jersey, you had the pewter pants, you had the pewter helmet. It looked good. It was a classic look. And they went back to that. But I'll be honest, the reason why I'm disappointed in the Buccaneers is twofold. One, they were hyping these jerseys up, which, again, I understand. You got to create a buzz. You got to create hype. So you're going to always make it seem like these are the best things ever created because you want fans hype. You want fans into it. It's a way to sell merchandise, a way to sell jerseys. That's all this is. It's a money grab. That's why these teams change uniforms so often. It's not to look good on the field. It's not to please the fans. It's every few years you could sell jerseys, extra jerseys, right? Fans always want the newest and latest uniforms. It's why you can do it. So that's why Nike now is pushing a lot of these teams to even make subtle changes just so that fans are clamored to buy the newest and the latest gear that's out there. So with this, you know, and the Buccaneers were really the first one that released their uniforms and hyped them up greatly. I was disappointed because I thought they were going to be something new. Their uniforms they just had with the digital clock numbers and the massive logo on their helmet, it was all a big swing and a miss. Their classics were fine. There was no need to change them. But they never indicated, at least to the Browns, they indicated we're going back to our roots. They didn't make that a secret. They told you flat out, one way or another, we are going back to our roots and going to make this happen. And instead, the Buccaneers hyped up, but this is going to be the greatest thing ever. They're new and improved. We're going to make sure that these aren't disappointed or aren't disappointing. And instead, they go back to their roots, which, again, I think it's a good look, especially all white, very clean. But I was disappointed personally because I feel like I was led to believe that something was coming up or something that was going to be new when it really wasn't. And not to mention, speaking of alternate jerseys, the Buccaneers you haven't seen have a pewter alternate jersey, which is basically like a gray. And it's just an awful look. And now maybe this is also part of me being disappointed again because I was hoping for a creamsicle look. And if you're unfamiliar with that, there was their look in I believe the 60s and the 70s and the 80s where it's, you know, burnt orange and white. And it looked like a creamsicle, if you know the ice cream. And it looked good. Now, maybe I think part of the reason why they weren't able to put that throwback in this year is because the NFL still has a one helmet rule, so you can only wear one helmet. And you're not going to wear the old, you know, or their current helmet that is pewter and gray with an orange and white uniform, you know, top and bottom. So I guess maybe, hopefully 2021, if and really when the NFL lifts their one helmet rule, you can have alternate helmets. I think a lot of these teams will bring back some alternate jerseys, and that will really, really let the creative juices go and going back to the retro look. But I was disappointed at least, and somehow, some way, I think the worst helmet in the NFL, the Buccaneers helmet, have this massive, massive logo on it that is, you know, again, you could see, you know, the Colts numbers from space. You could see this helmet from space. The logo is massive. It's huge. It's hideous. And somehow in this new reveal, when the Buccaneers, again, going back to their 2000s roots, that helmet still somehow survived. I don't know how. And again, some of these people that are put in charge of making these uniforms have really swung and missed big time. So 2 more teams that one hasn't released anything yet. That's the Patriots. They say minor changes are coming. Maybe their color rush, which is all navy, is their full-time home jersey. I like that look. I think it's a good look. I love. And again, maybe this is, again, another 2021 hope when the NFL changes their helmet rule that they go back to their Pat Patriot, which is, you know, the red, white, and blue. You have the Minuteman on the helmet. It's a great, classic, all-time look for the Patriots. So maybe that could come back into the fold. Or even, I mean, going back to the retro and old school look, they're in late 90s jerseys with the big Patriot logo on the shoulder pads, the lighter blue jerseys. It's a good look. I think it's a great look. I hope it comes back in one way or another. We'll see. But I think that would definitely be in the Patriots' best interest. And the Rams only released logos, which to not get the best of reception, let's just say, especially on social media a few weeks ago. Some of the logos, like, they had a ram horn or a ram head. I thought was a pretty cool look. But their logo with LA and coming out of the A is like a ram horn. Their biggest issue, it looks too similar to a Charger bolt, which now, especially with them being in the same city, in the same stadium, the last thing you want to do is have fans confused for what team is actually playing. Is it the Rams or the Chargers? And that's the biggest thing with the Rams. Their uniform, or I should say their logo, looked way, way, way too similar to their tenants in their new stadium with the Chargers. So let's get your thoughts. Like, does anyone care about uniforms? Or maybe I'm just a sucker. I love NFL or just general NFL sports uniforms in general. So maybe I'm more interested in this than you are. I hope I didn't bore you the last 10 minutes. But is there any uniforms that stood out to you that you liked? Any uniforms that you thought just completely swung and missed? For me, that's the Falcons big time. I thought they really had a chance again to go more retro, go more of that late 90s, early 2000s look, or even maybe throw it back even further. They had red helmets, which I thought were a great look, but instead, again, they go for something new, sexy, and I just thought it was a complete swing and miss. So let's get your thoughts. What uniform stood out to you the most? Which one just you thought stunk it up the most? So we'll get to that, and when we come back, NFL draft needs. We are 1 week from the NFL draft. So we got through all of the AFC last week. This week we'll start in the NFC East. So we have the Giants, the Redskins, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. And we'll also include the Chicago Bears in this. So those 5 teams will give you what they need to draft. Again, with the draft just a week away, we'll give you who they need to draft and why. When the Morning Boys, Ryan Hickey, come back right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Edward Lehman has been a trusted insurance advisor for over 16 years with insurance solutions for auto, home, commercial, life, and retirement. He's located at 54 Sunnyside Boulevard, Suite H in Plainview. That's just 1,000 feet south of 495. Local agent, local advice. The time to think about insurance is before you need it. So do yourself a favor, and before you pay your next insurance bill, give Ed and his team a call, 516-935-3900, or visit him online at www.allstate.com/EL. Edward H. Lehman Insurance is your trusted insurance advisor.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her.
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is you over 30 years ago.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And this is your mom when you drive her back from therapy.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Roles change without us noticing, and in your new role, we help you help. AARP gives you the information to help care for your mom so that you can have patience with her, just like she did with you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving or call 1-877-333-5885 to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one.
Are we there yet?
Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP. We help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome back into the Morning Boys. It is your host, Ryan Hickey, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We do appreciate you tuning in and giving us a few minutes here on your Thursday morning. Hopefully everyone is having a great Thursday, everyone having a great week, staying safe, staying sane, more importantly. And hopefully at least we can give you some sort of relief and some sort of entertainment here for the next 45 minutes or so till we go to the top of the hour on this Thursday. So we spent a lot of time, and we started the show, if you just missed it or just tuning in now, started the show talking about Dr. Fauci's comments when talking to Snapchat about if and when sports could return this summer. Dr. Fauci, again, just like everyone else right now, didn't give a timeline because basically everything is changing day by day, minute by minute, right? So there's really no way we can project month, 2 months, even 3 months out if sports could return in the summertime because we just don't know what's going to happen, right? Like we don't know where this virus is going to go. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of medical advancements. So basically said, the quarantine idea that MLB had with teams going to Phoenix, teams having, their best case of basically just going to the hotel to the field, and that's it. That is, the best way that this could happen. And in theory, theoretically, practically, maybe it could happen. Maybe it could work. But it's going to take a lot, obviously it's going to take a lot of sacrifice on the players and everyone involved in those respective sports to pull this off. So if you want to get your thoughts again, you can comment on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, or on Twitter, WWSRN_radio. It's WWSRN_radio. On Facebook, we have a comment. I hope I don't butcher your name if you're listening. I apologize. Sifu Mama, SIFUMMA. I apologize. I'm not the best with pronunciations. Hopefully, I was close to that. But he said with this, it's going to be up to the players whether they want to risk their lives. We can implement no spectators, but the players won't be safe no matter what testing or no testing. There's going to be a risk. And he's absolutely right. Whether the fans are in the stands or not is not the issue, right? Having no fans in the stands, which is part of what Dr. Fauci was saying, that that has to be a requirement and a maximum, or I should say a prerequisite. If sports come back, you can't have fans in the stands. Maybe for the rest of the summer, maybe for the rest of the year. We don't know. But at least right now, you cannot have fans in the stands. And sure, for them, that might help players a little bit. But for the most part, all it does is save me and you from getting sick, right? Having 50,000 people in a stadium, all it really does, it doesn't really help the players too much. For the most part, it helps us. And it helps these teams save lawsuits if we get sick so no one decides to sue any team that, that stages a game in their city and gets sick. Or, God forbid, gets an entire group of people sick, and it all unfortunately kind of re-kicks all the work, all the social distancing work that we've been doing this past month, kind of wipes that all out. So no fans, again, is more for us to help lessen the spread and totally prevent the spread and getting us re-sick or reigniting, let's say, a big outburst in a particular city. But players-wise, he's right. The risk is going to be there, and they have to be tolerant whether they want to risk getting sick, risk putting their lives and maybe even their families' lives at risk for playing the game and getting a paycheck. Nolan Arenado already came out of the Rockies and said, as long as it's safe, he's willing to play. Mike Trout of the Angels, obviously big-time name, big-time player, said that this Phoenix plan particularly had a lot of red flags, and he's right. I mean, there's no safe way to do it, and since there's no vaccine out there, there's no way to 100% ensure that people won't get sick. So if that's not the case, I don't think, and unfortunately I don't think, and I don't see a way that sports could return at least this summer. Again, barring a medical miracle. Because you can quarantine all you want, you can social distance all you want. One player gets sick. All it takes is one. We saw with the NBA. There's no way these leagues can continue if one player gets sick and thinking that already a few players haven't been sick before that. Quarantine must happen because the last thing you need is an entire league getting sick. That is terrible PR on you. That is terrible for your league. And more importantly, it's terrible for the health of the players. You also have to have their trust in this as well to make sure that they aren't risking their lives extra just to get a buck. So that's why I think Sifu is right. Sifu, I apologize, is right when he writes on Facebook that, no fans is sure, it could still happen. We could still watch. But for the most part, that doesn't really help the safety of the players. For the most part, that doesn't really impact whether they will get sick or not. And Lauren Clark, what's up, Lauren? Happy birthday, Lauren. It was her birthday yesterday, so if you know Lauren Clark, wish her happy birthday. And she said, too, forget just the fans. If you have the players, the trainers, the umpires, the media, that's, 100 people, and that's just for baseball, all together with everyone that is necessary and important to the game. So she's right. We can't even gather in groups of 10 right now. Right? So if we can't even gather in groups of 10, what's just going to make us think all of a sudden now, May 1st, when at least for at the moment, the social distancing and not gathering in groups of larger than 10 is extended to April 30th, what's to say May 1st, all of a sudden, we're going to be allowed to go to 100 people or 200 people or 1,000 people? That's not going to be the case. It's going to be a slow growth back to finally getting ourselves back to normal. The last thing that's going to come back is fans in stadiums. But even before that, you're going to have to make it safe to where you're going to allow, like Lauren said, 100 people at the minimum just to put on a baseball game. Well, you have to have, Arizona be allowed to gather in groups of 100. You have to have states around the country be allowed to gather in groups of 100. So it's an interesting thought, and I appreciate MLB's creativity and Dr. Fauci addressing it. But like he said, there's really no way of keeping these players safe in reality. Not to mention, until there's a vaccine, unfortunately, it's going to be very, very tough for any of these leagues to resume in any sort of safe way. All it takes is one person to get sick, and the entire league is shut down. And that's the last thing any of us need right now is a little hope, and more importantly, false hope that a season can return only to get shut down very, very, very quickly. So transition again, if you have any thoughts, if you want to type it on Facebook, Worldwide Sports or Network on Facebook, on Twitter at WWSRN_radio, you can drop your comments there. But we will move, and we'll read those throughout the show, but we will move, because the NFL Draft, 1 week from today, from Roger Goodell's basement, out there in, I believe, Yonkers, New York is where he's based out of. He'll be reading all the names drafted, and he will be rattling off the first round and getting the draft started next weekend. So we finish up the AFC on Monday's show. We finish up with the AFC West. So we'll start this week in the NFC with the NFC East, and we'll add in the Bears because the math makes us do 5 or 6 teams per show. So we'll do a little 5 today. So NFC East plus the Bears. We'll start here locally in New York with the Giants. Big draft for the Giants, obviously. They have 10 picks in the draft. Dave Gettleman, probably, I'll say his job is dependent on how he drafts. Now, you could say what you want, and he does deserve a lot of flack for his free agent signings. Last year in the draft, he did pretty well. I would say, the rookies he developed was DeAndre Baker. Came along slow, but started to pick up some steam towards the end of the year. He did all right with the draft picks that he had. Daniel Jones obviously looked better than what we all thought that he was drafted number 6. But the Giants, at least right now, hold the the number 4 overall pick. Excuse me. Talk for a living. That is scary. But so they have the number 4 overall pick. I understand a lot of people are talking about Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson, the really jack of all trades, the Swiss Army knife of the defense for Clemson going to the Giants at number 4 here. This pick should be offensive line. Offensive line, offensive line, and offensive line. Here's why. At number 4, you have, at least you want to project the draft so far, you can have, assuming nothing crazy happens, you'll have Joe Burrow going to the Bengals, you have Chase Young going to the Redskins. Right now, you have the Lions taking, or everyone is assuming they're going to draft Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State, the cornerback. But if not, let's say the Lions trade out of that pick, maybe to the Dolphins or the Chargers or a team that wants a quarterback, you would presume that a team would trade up to number 3 to draft Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Meaning, the Giants have their pick of the litter of all the tackles in the draft, which you talk to any expert, you read any draft scouting, there are 4 tackles in this draft that are premier, that are at the top of their game. There's a wide gap between them and the rest of the tackle class. So right now the Giants, at number 4, could have the pick of the litter, take the best one in their mind, whether it's Tristan Wirfs, whether it's Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. They could have their pick of the litter and solidify their tackle, either right tackle, they want to slide over to left tackle, whatever they want to do. They can ensure they can have an anchor on the offensive line for the next 10 or 12 years. So, they had a decent offensive line last year. It wasn't terrible. Now, it helped that Daniel Jones was mobile. But again, you can really boost that offensive line and really give him, not just him, but Saquon Barkley also some extra running lanes by picking the best tackle that they think in this draft. They also have to address the center position, which they could do later on in the draft. But more importantly, specifically at number 4. I know Isaiah Simmons is a name talked about a lot going to the Giants. Dave Gettleman, he talks about it time and time again. Anytime really he could talk about the team. He talks about the offensive line, talks about the defensive line, and talks about getting hog mollies. Specifically, is what he wants. You have that chance, Dave Gettleman, right now, number 4. Take whatever hog molly you want. Take your pick, whatever one you prefer. Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, Andrew Thomas, whatever one you want out of those 4. That's the consensus 4 that are the best at tackle position. You take him. You will get the best one in your mind. You don't have to worry about, someone else trading up or someone else, or I guess your main guy going off the board. No worry about that, number 4. Take the best tackle that you think is there and move on. And the other big important area the Giants need, edge rush. They had the Super Bowl, 42 last week on Giants-Patriots 07 when the Giants obviously ruined the perfect season of the Patriots. You watch that game. And the main reason why the Giants were so able to get to Tom Brady and able to slow down that historic Patriots offense to hold them only 14 points. Think about that. That game was 17-14. The reason why they're able to slow down Tom Brady, Randy Moss, and that historic, again, Patriots offense back in 07, because they were able to get pressure on the quarterback with 4 people. Their defensive line got a ton of pressure on Brady, and they're able to pressure the quarterback with only 4, meaning they can drop 7. So they had the passing lanes clogged up, and they're getting pressure on Tom Brady. He didn't have time to throw. The Giants haven't had that defensive line or even one specific edge rusher in a while. This is a chance to get some edge rushers, get some pressure on the quarterback. They addressed the interior of the defensive line. They signed Leonard Williams. They drafted Dexter Lawrence last year. Now it's time to get on the edge. Get someone that can, be an edge presence, help the defensive line, help the interior, get some pressure on the outside, and help the rest of your defense by not allowing the quarterback just to sit back there for 4, 5, 6 seconds and pick apart your secondary. So offensive line, please, Dave Gettleman, draft an offensive lineman number 4. Get a center and address the edge presence. Get an edge rusher or 2 to get some pressure on the quarterback so you can really help the rest of your defense. We go to the Cowboys. They have 7 picks. I still like the Cowboys roster. Now, they got kind of devastated a little bit in free agency and retirement. But one of their big needs, and probably the most glaring need they need right now, they want to win the division and want to be Super Bowl contenders, which Jerry Jones thinks they are, and Stephen Jones thinks they are, and Cowboys fans think they are. They need to address the secondary. They lost Byron Jones, who signed a mega deal in Miami. They also lost Jeff Heath. So Byron Jones at least was a standout in the secondary, and Jeff Heath was really the anchor, the glue as a safety for that secondary. They lost both of them. And it's really so far, at least on the defense, the lone position, and maybe even on the entire team, that doesn't have a standout player at that position group, right? Wide receiver, you have Amari Cooper. The offensive line, they have a ton of studs on the offensive line. Defensive line, you have DeMarcus Lawrence. Linebacker, you have Leighton Vander Esch. You have Jalen Smith. Really, secondary is one of the few positions on the field that they don't have a standout player that is the top of his game. So both safety and corner, address that, whether you want to go Around the first round, you have Grant Delpit out of LSU, who was a great safety. But secondary is definitely a need the Cowboys have to address, again, both safety and corner. And kind of continue, like, front seven depth. Well, we just, kind of ran down the list of why they have some great players. Again, DeMarcus Lawrence, Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith. They have some great front seven players. But they really have nothing behind them. Especially the defense line. They really need to get some depth, especially on the edge. DeMarcus Lawrence has been great. They lost Robert Quinn in free agency. Get someone on the other side of DeMarcus Lawrence that can help him out and really just get some depth because God forbid, especially, we saw Leighton Vander Esch miss some games. We saw Jalen Smith. Obviously, we know his injury history coming out of Notre Dame, that scary knee injury he suffered. One of those guys goes down, and again, Vander Esch has shown that he can't, has some trouble staying on the field. You need someone that can come in there, step in, and provide at least, some sort of competent play. So get some front seven depth, which, again, is what you can get in this draft in the later rounds, and the Cowboys have to do. And finally, get a center. We said the offensive line is very good. Still one of the best in all the league. But you had a big hurt when Travis Frederick retired earlier this year. And that really hurt because now the offensive line is still young, but they're still solid and they still have a lot of experience. But obviously, he was the guy, and he was the anchor, and this, that kind of got everyone on the same page. You need a center to replace him. And more importantly, too, you draft a center at some point in this draft, maybe earlier rather than later. You can develop him and build him with this line, so this line keeps cohesion. Right? They're all still under 30 years old. So you're still able to keep this line together for maybe 2, 3, 4 years. Great cohesion built, and that nothing helps, a young center than when everyone around him is there. So you can get that cohesion, get a center to address that position again with Travis Frederick retiring. Go to the Eagles, 8 picks in this draft. First and foremost, they need a receiver. And you can't draft this, but if you could, I would just draft health for the Eagles because they have been injury ravaged more than any team in the NFL these last few years. Even when they won the Super Bowl, they still were decimated by injuries and still able to overcome that. But receiver especially, they need a receiver not only to step up and play well, just to be healthy. I mean, last year you had both tight ends, Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, along with Miles Sanders, all have more receptions than any wide receiver. You have a running back, Miles Sanders, who's not like Christian McCaffrey, who's going to catch 100 balls or 85, 90 balls. This is a guy who still is a run-first kind of guy, jump off in the backfield maybe, but Miles Sanders is definitely not what you would call a pass-catching running back or make that his primary weapon like an Austin Eckler again or like a Christian McCaffrey. But him and both tight ends, your backup tight end and your primary tight end, both had all three of those guys had more receptions than any wide receiver on the team. And part of that is because health, because Alshon Jeffrey, who was your number one, can't stay in the field. He was banged up all year. Deshaun Jackson was a ghost, essentially. He was there and then missed the rest of the year with an injury. So not only do you just need, again, you can't draft health, but you can get a wide receiver early on that is a big, strong body that can help at least give you some sort of durability at the position because the Eagles have been unable to find that. Greg Ward, who is a college quarterback, kind of emerged as one of the weapons go-to for Carson Wentz down the stretch. You need a weapon and a bona fide receiver for Carson Wentz that can stay on the field, make plays for him, and more importantly, because despite all these injuries, and again, despite the wide receivers struggling to help the Eagles out, they still made the playoffs, still won the division. So help give Carson Wentz some more weapons, and again, just get someone that can just stay healthy for the Eagles for sure. And they need some help. Sort of like, we talked about front seven depth for the Cowboys. Well, they need back seven depth for the Eagles. They needed a leader at linebacker. They could really use someone in the middle there that calls out the signals, that sets the defense, and kind of that sideline player that now we're starting to see more about the linebacker position that's starting to slowly integrate their way into the league. And they did trade for, I should say, Darius Slay, which is a huge addition for the secondary. But across them, they could really use some cornerback depth as well, and even at safety as well. They didn't bring back Malcolm Jenkins, so they can really use a nice leader in the background. And again, Darius Slay is the talent. He's the number one corner, but he could use some help on the other side. And again, safety depth as well needs to be addressed. So we'll finish off the NFC East here with the Redskins. And they have 7 picks. They need a lot of different positions. Really, it's funny. The one position the Redskins could afford not to address in the draft is actually defensive line. I really like their defensive line. They have some guys that get after the quarterback. They have a lot of young playmakers there, both interior and on the edge. But with that said, they're still going to draft Chase Young. And they still absolutely should draft Chase Young. Do what the Patriots do. When you have a strength and you can make it better and make it even a bigger strength, do it. That's what they're going to do. Draft Chase Young easy. If you listen to what Ron Rivera says when he talks to the media these last few weeks, it's going to take a Godfather-like offer for him to trade out of number 2. So if you're a team that wants Chase Young or even wants to trade up, let's say, to draft Tua Tagovailoa, if you're afraid that you can't trade up any further and you're afraid that a team is going to take him before you, you're going to have to blow the Redskins away because they want game-changing players. Chase Young is one of those players off the edge, easy pick. It's going to happen more. I would be floored, absolutely floored, if anything other than a number 2, Chase Young is not a Washington Redskin. So that's very easy. Take Chase Young. He is your guy on the edge. Very, very easy money in the bank decision there for Ron Rivera and the Redskins. Move back one to go to linebacker. I mean, they have, for all the defensive line depth and talent they have there already, and they're going to add to when they draft Chase Young, linebacker has nothing. John Bostic is a decent player. Besides that, they have guys you haven't even heard of before. Get some linebackers in there. Get some competent play. Again, especially now with the defensive line wreaking havoc and getting pressure on the quarterback, you need linebackers there to clean up their mess. So really, theoretically, because the defensive line is so good, if you get an average linebacker, their play should be elevated because of how good the defensive line is going to be. So get someone there, get some sort of linebacker depth and some sort of competent play. And I think, too, they definitely use a wide receiver. Terry McLaurin, rookie last year, was a nice receiver. You saw him, he was kind of the go-to for Dwayne Haskins down the stretch, helped that they were teammates at Ohio State. But besides that, is Terry McLaurin the number 1 wide receiver? I would probably say no. He's a very nice receiver and a very nice rookie, and maybe we can develop into that. But right now, there is no one that Dwayne Haskins is throwing to outside of Terry McLaurin. Get a wide receiver. This is the draft to do it. You can get one in the later rounds. Give some sort of talent on the outside, opposite McLaurin, to not only give Haskins a second option, but also McLaurin not just basically get double and triple teamed every single play because he's the only option that Dwayne Haskins has. And finally, get a tackle. They have one in Trent Williams. He'd be great to fit on their offensive line. He does not want to play for Washington. He held out and didn't play at all last year, mostly out of spite. So, he did not like the front office, did not like ownership, did not trust them, more importantly, going back to a health scare he had with a cyst, or I should say a tumor in his head that he had to get removed that Redskins doctors did not find. So he, out of spite, did not play last year, does not trust the Redskins, and he wants out. He's demanding a trade. The Redskins have to trade him. You got to get some sort of value. You're not going to have a franchise tackle sit on the bench and sit on the sidelines for a second straight year. Trade Trent Williams, get some sort of value back, and draft a developmental tackle later on in the draft that you can put there to hopefully protect Dwayne Haskins' blind side going forward. But get something, anything, for Trent Williams. And again, we'll finish up. So that will do for the NFC East. We'll finish up with the Bears. 7 picks, no first rounder this year. Remember, that is still the second first-round pick they gave up in the Khalil Mack trade. This is interesting because the Bears don't have a first-round pick. They have 2 second-round picks, and then nothing until the 5th round. So they're really going to need a lot of help unless they trade up to get these 2 second-rounders to really hit and be starters and contributors for the team in 2020. Part of that is the offensive line. They need interior help, especially. The tackles are decent. You had Kyle Long retire, so that's obviously going to be a need. But interiorly, with the guard and the center, they need help more importantly, and that should be the primary focus. 29th last year in run blocking as an offensive line, 20th in pass blocking, according to DVOA, which is, again, a formula that uses efficiency. So, and that is a pretty reliable stat. So, again, almost last in the league in run blocking, bottom third in the league in pass blocking. Not great. Not great, especially when you have a rookie quarterback, a quarterback on a rookie contract, and Mitchell Trubisky, who, for the most part, the jury is out on. You bring in a guy, Nick Foles, to compete with him that many think will win the job and will take the job. So, if this truly is Mitch's make-or-break kind of year, you need to give him at least some sort of help with the offensive line. Give him a chance if there's any success, any talent in there, to allow him to tap into it because he's not running away from the rush 24/7. So with that said, they can really use a center, anchor the line. But again, center and guard should be there for the most part, their priority. Speaking of Mitch Trubisky, get some outside weapons. Allen Robinson, a great wide receiver, Penn State alum, no big deal. He is in the last year of his deal. He's really their only weapon they have. I like Anthony Miller. He's shown flashes here and there, but not consistent enough. And there's really not much production outside of really Allen Robinson consistently. So get some not only wide receivers, get some talent too. Oh man, that's. See, this segment went so long that the bet I had running ran out. That's why I heard the college football music. I apologize. I guess I have to wrap it up. So tight end, what the hell's going on? Oh, gee. Playing an ad. Okay, jeez. All right, there we go. So I guess that's my cue. I'm talking way too long. The segment goes way too long. When the bed first runs out, and then an ad pops up. I apologize, folks. We are working only with the best technology here. But we'll quickly wrap it up again. So outside weapons for the Bears, wide receiver, tight end. They got Trey Burton a few years ago. He's been basically nothing. Jimmy Graham they just signed for some sort of reason. I have no clue. That guy's washed up. So get some sort of weapons on the outside for Mitchell Trubisky. And finally get some secondary help. Corner and safety, they need help. Kyle Fuller's been a nice young corner for them. Need someone the opposite of him. Same with safety. Eddie Jackson, I like him as a player, but they have a big hole on the other side of him. So get some safety and some secondary help as well for the Bears. And really at least have some, just give them some sort of competency that they can compete. Because this is going to be a make or break year for the Bears. I think Matt Nagy's job could be at risk if they don't come through and don't make the playoffs. And Mitch Trubisky's career could be a risk if he doesn't play any better than he did last year. Because as we know, that was a big, big step back from Mitch and a big, big hurt on the stock of Ryan Pace, their general manager, for drafting him and kind of, really having that backfire big time. So, like I said, that will do it for at least NFC Draft East and Bears needs. We'll get, obviously, more to the NFC North and NFC South on Monday before we wrap it up a week from today when the NFL Draft does start up a week from tonight. So, if you're a Giants fan, Redskins fan, Cowboys fan, Giants fan, or Eagles fan, or Bears fan, see the recall, the snap recall is great. Any of the draft needs that you agree with, disagree with, again, now Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, or Twitter, WWSRN_Twitter. So when we come back, we'll finish up the show. We'll get your comments on the draft needs, and we'll also finish up with a rumor that was started yesterday. Could OBJ be possibly on the move? And not to mention, we have a great NFL insider break some really, really interesting news, kind of hype up a big news break that was anything but big. So we'll finish the show with that when we come back to the Morning Boys, Ryan Hickey, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Do current market conditions have you nervous? Our experienced team of financial professionals at Heritage Harbor Financial Associates understands that no two investors are alike. We all have different goals, needs, and appetites for risk. That's why the one-size-fits-all approach does not work, especially when planning for retirement. At Heritage Harbor Financial Associates, we analyze your unique investment style so that you can work toward your individual retirement goals on your terms. Heritage Harbor Financial Associates can help you take steps to reach your retirement goals by providing a wide array of financial products to fit your needs, even for the risk adverse. Give us a call at 631-331-6599 to learn more or to set up an appointment with one of our financial professionals. You can also find us on the web at hhfa.org or on Facebook at facebook.com/hhfa.org. Our number again is 631-331-6599. That's 631-331-6599. Investments in stock, bonds, and mutual funds and variable annuities are not FDIC insured and are subject to fluctuation in value and market risk, including loss of principal. Heritage Harbor Financial Associates offers securities through AXA Advisors, LLC, New York, New York. Member FINRA, SIPC, annuity and insurance products offered through AXA Network, LLC.
Edward Lehman has been a trusted insurance advisor for over 16 years with insurance solutions for auto, home, commercial, life, and retirement. He's located at 54 Sunnyside Boulevard, Suite H in Plainview. That's just 1,000 feet south of 495. Local agent, local advice. The time to think about insurance is before you need it. So do yourself a favor, and before you pay your next insurance bill, give Ed and his team a call, 516-935-3900, or visit him online at www.allstate.com/EL. Edward H. Lehman Insurance is your trusted insurance advisor.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Morning Boys with your host, Ryan Hickey, and we do appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully everyone's having a great Thursday. As we wrap up here on this Thursday edition, if you want to leave us a comment, Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Facebook or WWSRN_radio on Twitter. Great news, we're also on Twitch. So if you're a big Twitch user, enjoy the content on there. You can also find the Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Twitch. And also an app is coming out as well. We'll give you all the details once that's released, but it'll be on iOS and Android as well. Very excited for that release. You can get all of the Worldwide Sports Radio Network content in one centralized location. All the articles you write, all the shows that we do, everything that content-wise is pumped out of the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, you can have at the touch of a button, at the click of a finger, and makes it nice and easy for you to stay up to date and know everything that's going on. So I know we try our best. We have so many different platforms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Periscope, whether it is TuneIn, radio.com. If you go to worldwidesportsradio.com, you can watch or listen to the show there. Obviously on Twitter as well. So there's so many different platforms that we have out there. Now you add Twitch. But it's nice to see that, instead of jostling around or going to Facebook to watch a show and then going to worldwidesportsradio.com to read the articles, everything is in one spot. Worldwide Sports Radio Network app, again, once that's released, we'll give you the name of it and where you can find it again. It should be both on Android and iOS. So that will be very awesome, very exciting for us to release, hopefully in the next few weeks for sure. So we'll definitely keep you updated about that. So we'll finish off the show talking about an NFL draft or an NFL trade rumor that started circling yesterday, getting some legs, and that is Mark Malusis of WFAN here in New York. He tweeted out yesterday and reported on his show that he heard from a source that the Browns and Vikings are working on a deal that would send Odell Beckham Jr. from the Browns to the Vikings for a few draft picks. The draft picks that were thrown out there was a 2nd and a 5th round draft pick back to Cleveland. But, nothing's official, nothing's confirmed, that they're still discussing the ins and outs of the trade. And this is interesting because from both the Vikings and the Browns' perspectives, this trade makes sense for neither team. Well, you look at the Vikings, what they did this offseason. So they already had a loud, distracting, if you want to call diva quality-like receiver in Stephon Diggs, right? Earlier this year, after a tough Packers loss in which the offense was stagnant, in which in a big game Kirk Cousins melted down in the spotlight, Stephon Diggs was very upset. Really, the entire team was upset. And he voiced his frustration about the offense, specifically about Kirk Cousins. You had Cousins also apologize publicly to Adam Thielen, another receiver on the team. So there was obviously, you had Diggs having some contention with the way the offense was being run, particularly because of the way Kirk Cousins played in big games. Now that distraction is able to be kind of mellowed out and they were able to work through it, obviously, the big win in New Orleans earlier this year kind of helped at least quiet some of that frustration because Kirk did make a few big throws in order to help win that game. But essentially, he was a distraction. Again, he wasn't afraid to voice his opinion when play was going on that he didn't like, when the offense was struggling that he didn't like, and basically when he was unhappy, he was not afraid to tell you how he felt. And the Vikings figured this is too much of a headache. You know what? We're going to move on. Maybe the talent's not worth it. Be better in a change of scenery, and they trade him to the Bills. Got a decent, boatload of picks back, including a first-round pick. Okay. You've Adam Thielen. You're going to rock. Maybe you draft a receiver for Kirk Cousins, and let's go, right? But now, why would you trade for a receiver who has the same qualities, even, magnified even more than Stephon Diggs? And the biggest, all that travels around Odell Beckham Jr., the biggest question mark around him is not his talent on the field. It's, will he be frustrated? What will he say after the game? Is he into this game? Is he out of this game? Is he checked out? Is he checked in? Odell Beckham Jr. is a walking distraction. In his last year with the Giants, people were so focused and concerned on what he was doing on the sideline, or he was proposing to kicking nets, knocking them down, having a tyrant on the sideline acting out. There's more attention to what he was doing on the sideline than actually on the field. So he is, when he was traded, again, a big distraction. Still is a big distraction. For Giants fans, people still talk about Odell Beckham Jr. That is the biggest question mark surrounding him. Will he fit in with the Browns? Will he be okay being one of the guys when you have so many weapons, right? When you have Jarvis Landry as best friend. When you have Nick Chubb as a running back, that's great. When you bring in Austin Hooper, there are so many weapons the Browns have offensively that Baker Mayfield can throw the ball to. The question is, well, will Odell be happy? What if he doesn't get the ball as much as he used to? With the Giants, he was the main guy. He was really the only guy Eli Manning had to throw to for his career. So now you're going to an offense with Eli Manning where he was the number one target, to where you're probably still the number one receiver in Cleveland. He has more talent and it should be more relied upon than Jarvis Landry, especially for big plays. But still, you're just one of the guys now with Odell Beckham, with the rest of the cast that the Browns have. So he is a distraction whether he wants to be or not. So why would the Vikings bring in a guy that's a bigger distraction? Sure, the upside is higher, right, with the bigger playability, his speed, the way he catches the ball, his route running. You could say it's all an upgrade over Stephon Diggs. But also an upgrade is the drama he brings both on and off the field. So if you thought that he was frustrated and he was kicking nets and punching them and then proposing to them on the sideline because he was frustrated when the offense wasn't working with the Giants, what's going to happen if Kirk Cousins has another bad game in primetime on Monday night, in a game they should win or a game they need him to be great in order to win, and he's not? What's going to happen then? It's going to happen 3 weeks in when they played the Packers, and again, Kirk Cousins stinks it up, throws for 150 yards, 3 interceptions, and just goes into a shell. This is the same distraction on a bigger level that they're bringing in that they just traded away. So from the Vikings' perspective, sure, it may be good value, second and a fifth-round pick for someone who still has a ton of talent, who's still pretty young. But that's exactly why you trade Stephon Diggs away in the first place, to get rid of that distraction. So it makes no sense for them to bring a bigger distraction into the locker room. Not to mention, if you're the Browns, you bring Odell Beckham in last year. For the most part, I thought he was a pretty good soldier. He didn't really, speak out too much. Obviously, there was a lot of frustration, not just from him, but from everyone on the Browns team about the way the offense was run and led under Freddie Kitchens. What happened? The Browns realized that they got rid of Freddie Kitchens. They valued and they thought the talent on the field was being held back by the coach rather than vice versa, which is, listen, that's the right move. I think anyone who's even the slightest football fan could see that. But it is the Browns, so you never know sometimes. Their decision-making is never exactly great, never exactly sound. So they bring in Kevin Stefanski, who was the offensive coordinator in Minnesota. You bring him in. You think that at least he could be the offensive guy that could help turn Baker Mayfield around after a terrible year and a regressed year he had last year. Help really utilize the weapons that they have. And now things only should look up. Odell Beckham Jr. quietly had a decent year last year. Not Odell Beckham Jr. type highlights. Obviously, the touchdowns weren't there, but he played hurt. He was there. He was a good soldier, I thought, despite, again, the circumstances being pretty bad for the offense and the talent they had compared to the actual productivity and the plays being called. That offense was a lot skilled, a lot better than what they showed on the field week in and week out with Freddie Kitchens calling the plays. So to me, at least, if the Browns are in a position where they bring Kevin Stefanski in, where they bring in Andrew Berry in as their GM, so you change the front office outlook and you change the coach, keep the players the same, the Browns are still, have a chance to make the playoffs this year, especially with an extra team added to where 7 teams now make the playoffs in each conference. It's there for them. I think they're better than the Steelers. I think they're better than the Bengals. So obviously you have the Ravens there, but they still can get a wild card, and they're still in the playoff hunt for sure. Why would you, and with a franchise that is starved, that has seen little and minimal postseason success since the NFL merger, where they won the offseason now 2 years in a row, right? Last year, obviously, that big offseason, they traded for Baker Mayfield. They had a solid draft. They really made some big, sexy moves that people were buying in. The Browns, winning the division, making the playoffs. Some people were bold enough to even think they were going to the Super Bowl. Obviously, they fell flat on their face on all those expectations. But the same thing, they go out and knock it out of the park. They signed Jack Conklin as a tackle in free agency. They signed Austin Hooper as a tight end. They win free agency again for the second year in a row. You're not going to limit that or go back on that by trading Odell Beckham Jr. You're not going to do it. So it doesn't make sense from the Browns' perspective either. So I'm not doubting Mark Malusis or his sources. I'm just looking at it from a strictly X's and O's team point of view. It makes no sense for the Browns to trade him in a year that try to make the playoffs, in a year that they brought in a new head coach and a new GM to try to change things around, where they basically keep the offense intact. So they don't believe that the offense was the reason why they struggled last year. They believe it was the coaching staff. They changed that. There's no reason why to get rid of now one of your most talented players on your team, especially at the wide receiver position, just for a few draft picks. They're not in the rebuilding stages. And if you're the Vikings, you already had this problem. You already had Stephon Diggs, who was the distraction, who's a talented wide receiver, but really said was on his mind whenever he wanted to. That's what Odell Beckham is. And when things get ugly, as we saw in New York here, he can really lash out and really become a big-time distraction for the team, which is something that the Vikings did not tolerate, which is why they traded away Stephon Diggs, which is why it wouldn't make sense for them to try to tolerate a risk and bring someone in who's even a bigger distraction than someone they just traded away for. So we'll see if this happens. I would be honestly shocked if it does go through because, again, both of these teams are in no position to make this trade. But, again, we saw Bill O'Brien trade his best wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins for an injury-riddled running back in which the Cardinals were desperate to get rid of. And in doing so, not only they got rid of him, they got one of the best wide receivers in football back. So, yeah, safe to say we've seen some coaches and some GMs do some head-scratching moves for sure. This would definitely add to the category for both teams, which I don't think it's going to happen. And if so, I think it'd be a mistake for both the Vikings and the Browns. And I want to finish up the show with this because speaking of kind of NFL and teases, right? This trade is a little bit of a tease. We'll see if it actually goes through. But the NFL world and the sports world was very upset with someone last night, and that is in one Jay Glazer. If you're unfamiliar with Jay, he is a Fox Sports NFL insider. He is one of the big newsbreakers. You have Ian Rappaport, NFL Network. Obviously, you have Adam Schefter at ESPN. Jay Glazer is that guy at Fox Sports, and he is right there. He breaks a ton of scoops. He's very reliable. Rarely does he have news one way or another that may seem shocking at the beginning. That doesn't happen. He doesn't just throw things against the wall and see what sticks. He has legitimate, solid information, and he only reports it when he knows it's 100% truth. And the reason why people are upset with Jay is not because he had a bad lead or he gave you false information or false hope. He spent 24 hours hyping up a story that, let's just say, disappointed everyone in the NFL world, right? So on Tuesday night, Jay Glazer was quoted saying, quote, "It'll be very big breaking news. I can't say it yet. I'm telling you, I'm breaking big news. Legit big breaking national news tomorrow on the show. It's not news to make fun of," end quote. This was on Tuesday night. This is a teaser to news he was putting out on his TV show Wednesday night at 11 o'clock Eastern. So for 24 hours, all NFL fans are wondering what the hell could this guy be teasing. This is a huge tease, right? He's sitting on this for 24 hours. He's letting it build. Normally, we don't get a teaser information, a tease for this big of information and then have a 24-hour gap. Usually it's just out of the blue, boom. This is what I'm hearing. I'll confirm, and then they kind of re-up, and once it's official, in the span of minutes or span of hours is usually when the news breaks, right? They don't ever sit on a scoop for hours, let alone 24 hours. Just God forbid someone takes it. So this is obviously a scoop that he thinks he only has. And saying it's legit, quote, legit big breaking national news tomorrow. Whether it was obviously with everything we have going on with the coronavirus, is it the NFL going to officially push their season back? Is the NFL going to discuss different scheduling ways? Are they going to push the draft back? There's all these different rumors and speculations that are probably centered around coronavirus for the most part about how this will impact the NFL one way or another. They were really the only league that hasn't been affected yet. And I think we all think that's going to change at some point. Maybe this was the tipping point. Maybe this is the time where they say, you know what? For right now, we're going to definitely suspend the season. We'll go with the draft. But after that, we don't know when we're going to resume activities. No. It was the fact that Jay Glazer, this big national breaking news that he said multiple times. Quote, I'm telling you, I'm breaking big news, end quote. Was that Rams center Brian Allen had coronavirus. That was the legit big breaking national news that he was breaking, that he built up for 24 hours, that he made a lot of fans stay up late at night. He broke this 11 o'clock East Coast time at night. So people stayed up if you're not used to, especially on a work night, not just staying up that late, or especially with, the stay at home and the quarantine. If you're going to bed earlier and earlier now, he made people stay up late just to find out that Brian Allen, the Rams center, was the first NFL player to have coronavirus. And it's funny because the reaction was, as you can imagine, extremely negative. And this is a guy breaking big news about someone having coronavirus at a time when there's a national pandemic and millions of people, or I should say hundreds of thousands of people around the country have coronavirus. Now, it's something, it is serious. Don't get me wrong, right? He should be okay. He said he's had it for about 3 weeks. And I believe today's the day that Brian Allen, he said he should receive the all clear and be totally out of the woods with this virus. So it's good that it hasn't gotten worse, because unfortunately we've seen young athletes or just young people in general get very, very sick from this virus. So it's obviously, first and foremost, it's very good that he's healthy. But it's just funny to see the reaction of people furious that this big breaking news was an NFL player getting coronavirus in a time, in a pandemic, where everyone and anyone could get it, right? This is not a disease that's immune for the rich or the celebrity or the athlete. Anyone and anyone that's exposed can get it. The virus doesn't discriminate. So it's not that big of a shock that an NFL player has it. Sure, again, it's a celebrity, so it's a bigger deal. But for the most part, I wouldn't qualify a football player having coronavirus as big breaking news, considering we already had NBA players have coronavirus. And we saw multiple NBA players. One is Rudy Gobert. We saw Kevin Durant have coronavirus. It happens. We're in a freaking pandemic here, But it's just funny that Jay Glazer, again, a guy that doesn't give you, BS, tells it like it is, has some great scoops, gets some great information, to hype up a tease for 24 hours, just to say that one player has coronavirus, I'm going to say is not the best use of your platform, Jay. Maybe not the best reason or motivation to keep people on edge. And certainly, you got to think, he broke that, or I should say, he put the scoop out 24 hours in advance so people would watch his show, to get viewers on his show. So obviously, it was all self-serving. Let's just say that's not the best use of your platform, and especially now in this time, not the best idea if you're going to get attention and want people to watch your show. Maybe not the best idea to use coronavirus as that reason. So just, I, like many people, were extremely frustrated and disappointed that the big news was a player in a time of pandemic having coronavirus in a time where hundreds of thousands of people are getting the virus. But again, we're glad to hear Brian Allen, most importantly, is well. He's recovering, and today he should receive the all clear. So obviously that, first and foremost, is most important, and we're very happy to hear that. But it was interesting that we thought the news was going to be a lot bigger than it was. So that will do it for this edition, on this Thursday edition of the Morning Boys with Ryan Hickey right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We do appreciate you tuning in. We're sorry, and we apologize for being unable to have Brett McMurphy on the show. Hopefully we can get him back either next Monday or next Thursday at a big call, right at 10 o'clock, of course, right when we're supposed to have him on. So he couldn't come on. But hopefully we can get him on next week to discuss, because college football, it can be interesting. College football is going to be really the canary in the coal mine, per se, for football and for fall athletics. If college football can't go on as scheduled, the NFL is going to have a tough time getting along as scheduled. So we'll discuss some interesting ways, some creative ways that college football could be played one way or another. Hopefully we can get Brett next week, but we hope you have a great weekend. We'll continue to preview the draft on Monday. So have a great weekend, a safe weekend. Stay sane, stay healthy. We'll talk to you on Monday right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Edward Lehman has been a trusted insurance advisor for over 16 years with insurance solutions for auto,